Coronavirus cases continue to surge across the U.S., with the number of infections now topping 15 million. And this comes as we approach the start of winter and more Americans are likely to gather indoors. Dr. Anthony Fauci spoke with New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo about what he sees happening during the holidays. Take a listen.
The effect of the Thanksgiving surge would be probably another week and a week and a half from now, because it's usually 2.5 weeks from the time of the event. The problem is that's going to come right up to the beginning of the Christmas Hanukkah potential surge. So you have a surge upon a surge, and then before you can handle that, more people are going to travel over Christmas. They're going to have more of those family and friends gatherings that you accurately said are an issue. So if those two things happen and we don't mitigate well, we don't listen to the public health measures that we need to follow, that we could start to see things really get bad in the middle of January. So I think not only for New York State, but for any state or city that is facing similar problems, without substantial mitigation, the middle of January can be a really dark time for us.
That we heard from Dr. Fauci before Thanksgiving as well. So, of course, Quicktake's Madison Mills has been looking into all of this, and she noticed that one unintended consequence of Fauci's consistent messaging on this virus has been an increased interest in medical schools. So Maddie is here to explain. Maddie, the increase in med school applications is being called the Fauci effect. Is that right?
That's exactly right, Scarlett. So what we're seeing is that college applications have decreased this year overall because of the unknown parts of COVID-19, right? But medical school applications are breaking previous records. We're seeing an 18% increase in medical school applications overall. And admissions officers, like you said, coined this the Fauci effect. They're saying that applicants are seeing Dr. Fauci's handling of the pandemic, and it's inspiring them to apply for medical school themselves. Dr. Fauci responded to this speaking to NPR, and he said that it was very flattering, but he kept things humble. He deferred to the healthcare workers who have saved millions of lives during this pandemic and said that they are the ones who should take responsibility for this increased interest in medical schools.
Okay, got it. Now, of course, there's a lot of attention around Dr. Fauci, not just in the medical community, but overall, he has a lot of fans. What else are people doing to celebrate Dr. Fauci? You have people who want to go to medical school, but how else are they honoring him?
Right, Scarlett. So it's obviously not just medical schools. We're also seeing Dr. Fauci fandom popping up a ton online, right? We're seeing a lot of Dr. Fauci Stan accounts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. A lot of users are coining him their COVID crush as well. And there's also a lot of merchandise here, right? Whenever you see a super fan coming out for Gen Z folks, you're going to see merch not far behind. And one thing I find interesting is that a former Andrew Yang spokesperson started a line called Fauci on the Couch, where you can buy Dr. Fauci pillows, socks, onesies for your baby. And the Dr. Fauci pillow has been sold out pretty much consistently throughout the pandemic, which is just one example of the internet's obsession with Dr. Fauci.
All right, so a holiday bestseller, the Fauci couch. That's amazing. Of course, Dr. Fauci also has his critics as well, and that's the darker side to it. What are we seeing and hearing from the anti-Fauci crowd?
Yeah, so there's definitely a contingent of this country that is very against Dr. Fauci's handling of the pandemic. One reason we're seeing that is because the Trump administration and Dr. Fauci haven't always been aligned on public health measures to curb the virus. I spoke with Dr. Fauci a few months ago about the love-hate relationship he's had with the U.S. electorate, and this is what he had to say.
You know what? We don't have that soundbite ready, but what did he say? What did he say in summary?
Yeah, so he spoke with me at length about how the U.S. electorate is essentially divided. There's a group of people who are definitely supportive of the public health measures that he's put forward. There's also a group of people who believe that mask wearing should not be mandatory. And he said that the vitriol he's received has been even worse than that he received during his handling of the AIDS epidemic, which was also very politicized. So that's just something that really stood out to me. He also said that his families had to have security to keep them safe. And again, he just chalked this up to the politicization of COVID in the U.S.
Yeah, it's not often that we hear Dr. Fauci share more of the personal side of what this pandemic has done to him, how it has affected his life. What were some of your other takeaways in that conversation with Dr. Fauci? Because you got to see a side of him that most people don't.
Yeah, Scarlett, what I thought was so interesting is that he was very jovial. We talked for a couple minutes before the interview about my name. He was very casual with me, which you just don't expect from a public health expert. But there was one area of conversation where I found that he kind of tensed up a bit. And again, it was his handling or his response to the Trump administration's handling of the coronavirus pandemic. He has to walk a really thin line here, right? He can't overtly critique the Trump administration because he needs to be kept on as a public health expert to be able to keep people safe. And I'm fascinated in how that's going to play out as we transition to the Biden team. We do know that Biden plans on keeping Dr. Fauci on, and Fauci has already met with Biden's transition team multiple times. So we're going to have to see how Fauci's actions are going to play out when Biden becomes president.
Yeah, you get the sense that Dr. Fauci became very good at biting his tongue and not saying what he wanted to say. There was that moment where I think he went like this, right? He put his hand over his face because he wasn't, when President Trump said something at a press conference and he just didn't want to show his face because it was a pretty extreme reaction. Madison Mills, thank you so much for giving us the latest. And of course, your conversation with Dr. Fauci continues to illuminate what the administration can do and what he will do next.
The biggest stories the moment they happen from around the globe. Subscribe to Bloomberg Quicktake now for insight in an instant.